expecting Diane?
Yeah, as far as I
Yeah,
know.
okay. Ready? All right, at this time, we will call to order the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for October 30th, 2019. Will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item A2, roll call, please.
Chairman Twait,
Here.
Vice Chairman Fikes, absent. Commissioner Springer, absent. Commissioner McIntyre,
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Halstead,
Here.
Commissioner Askin. Here. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item A3, agenda approval. Wishes of the commission.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any objection? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Item A4, consent agenda.
I move
Commissioner Askin,
we approve the consent agenda as written.
do we have a second?
Second?
Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Takes us down to item C, scheduled public comment. C1, we have Jennifer LeMay from LeMay Engineering and Consulting Inc. to discuss the local hazard mitigation plan. So, you'd like to come forward?
While I'm speaking, if you could sign this attendance, I put that always in one of the appendices of the hazard mitigation plan. FEMA likes to see involvement of the community. If you could speak over there by the microphone so you could be heard, I would appreciate it. Sure. We're here to talk about the hazard mitigation plan. Next slide.
Good for the update.
Well, keep talking about it. The general. Sorry, guys. The general schedule for this plan is that FEMA requires they be written every 5 years, written or updated as needed. And in 2010, the city of Kenai was part of the Kenai Peninsula Borough Mitigation Plan. Their plan was not ratified. They've been in development, and the state feels that it's in the city's best interest to go ahead and develop a standalone plan. This plan can later be added as an appendix to the Kenai Peninsula Boroughs plan, but it doesn't need to. This plan will allow the city to apply for grant funding, either through FEMA in any of their grant programs. The state of Alaska has 2 different types of programs, hazard mitigation grant program and pre-disaster mitigation. Plus, there's a whole host of national grants that can be applied for too. And the first thing they always look for is the plan current and is it adopted by the community? And in this case, the community is the city council, and you're the predecessor to the city council. So that's why I'm here tonight, to discuss this with you. Tonight, we're just looking at a high-level summary of the plan, and then within the next 2 weeks, Elizabeth will post the plan to the city's website, and we'll go into a 30-day public comment period. And I would encourage everyone, the public, the department heads, managers, commissions, boards, everyone, what this plan, and then we'll come back together on December 4th at the regularly scheduled city council meeting, and that'll serve as a public forum. And if there's any comments presented there or in the meantime that are emailed to Elizabeth or I or telephoned, then those will be incorporated into the plan. Lily, can you go ahead, please? The first step is to define the hazards that are applicable to the city. What's applicable in city limits? And Elizabeth and I have been talking now for quite a while, and we met with the planning team this afternoon, which consisted of the fire chief, the police chief, and a few other individuals, and we talked about which hazards are specific. And there isn't really a flood hazard in the city of Kenai, but there's definitely an erosion problem. The water treatment plant was identified as being structure that could be impacted by erosion. There's the Kenai Bluffs, which are the big draw to erosion. Wildland, conflagration fires, earthquakes, volcanic ashfall, severe weather, and changes in the cryosphere. We did not include ground failure or tsunamis. We felt this list of hazards best fit within the city of Kenai and what could potentially happen. That doesn't mean these events are guaranteed to happen, but that in some capacity, whether a low risk or a medium or high risk, they will happen. Next slide, please. This just goes over the schedule again, and what happens after we meet on December 4th is I will incorporate all the comments and then submit the plan to the state. They review it, and then it goes to FEMA. FEMA has a lengthier review time, and typically they'll issue comments. Sometimes they'll just go straight to a pre-approval, which means that they will approve the plan once the city council adopts it. And so I'm thinking this process could be finished in March or April, as long as everybody stays on their tasks. And then the city would be good until 2025 before another update was needed. Next slide, please. These hazards are not listed in any particular order. Changes in the cryosphere is required by FEMA now, and the city of Kenai is not affected by glaciers, permafrost, or avalanches. According to the 2018 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers report, both sea ice and river ice collect at the toe of the Kenai Bluffs during the winter months, and ice gouges the beach and causes damage. Next slide, this slide, earthquakes. All of Alaska is prone to earthquakes of some magnitude or another. The one in 2016 had an impact to the city where 4 homes were destroyed on Lilac Lane. Other than that, we can't really predict when an earthquake will happen or not, but according to the most recent probability modeling by USGS, it's a very rare event that less than a 2% probability that a earthquake of significant magnitude will happen in the city. But again, it's just something that's hard to quantify. Next slide. Flood erosion. We've already talked about erosion and the 2 areas of concern. With severe weather, there's high winds and some ice storms, but really most people prepare by building their homes to code, and they're prepared with winter gear, and it's not as harmful of a risk as it could be. And then with fires, that's the one that this afternoon the planning team decided was the largest concern for the city. And there were a few small fires back in 1969 and the mid-1980s, and then obviously we know about this past summer where there were fires up to the road and all the closures to Anchorage, and that obviously had an impact on the city. There's no conflagration fires within city limits. The fire chief today said there is the potential in some parts of town where one could happen if there were high winds, but it's not a high concern. It's on the low concern level. Mitigation goals for the city. We went through these, and we can add to them or we can delete if these aren't what everybody feels is appropriate, but we thought about ranking the hazards, and fire was number 1, followed by the erosion as number 2, and then earthquakes is number 3. And so these goals are in order of priority for the city. And the first one would be to reduce or eliminate loss of homes and property due to fires. Second one would be to gain support and funding to implement the recommended action from the 2018 Corps of Engineers Kenai Bluff study. The third one would be to just prepare citizens for earthquakes and the impacts one could experience. And then the fourth one, which sounded like the city fared well the last couple of ash falls from Augustine, and read out that you just protect yourself in place. And then the fifth one and the sixth one are applicable to all hazards, and that would be to update the city's emergency operating plan, and that just has a checklist for every person that would need to be operating in case of an emergency and what they need to do, what their areas of responsibility are. And the fire chief said that is on his priority list to do. And then the last thing is to look at shelters or where an emergency operations command center could be established. And this building was proposed as updating. Next slide. Potential mitigation actions, which these are what we came up with today, but again, we can certainly add to these. The first one for fire would just be to start promoting the FireWise program in the school systems in particular, because kids are excited, they go home, tell their parents, promote defensible space, just so that trees aren't falling on houses or power lines. And then the big one for anywhere in Alaska, but particularly down here on the peninsula, is the spruce bark beetle infestation. And that's something that the borough and the Department of Forestry are working on developing a map of those areas, and they're cognizant that that always is changing as more areas become infested. So that's probably the number 1 hazard. And then number 2 is just to continue to seek funding for the bluff protection measure recommended by the Corps of Engineers. If there's a solution, I'm not really familiar with the FEMA identifying the wastewater treatment plan as an area of concern, but if there is something that can be done, that would be something we could also include in the plan. And Willie, the next one. And then the borough has good building codes, unlike a lot of places in Alaska, and they're enforced. And just to continue to do that as far as earthquake standards, so that homes are built to the best level that they can be to sustain their structural integrity during an earthquake, and just continue monitoring. There's a monitoring station on top of the airport that the Alaska Volcanic Observatory monitors, and to continue doing that. And then 5 and 6 are very straightforward: to update the city's emergency operating plan, and then to decide where an emergency operations command center should be. And that doesn't necessarily have to be decided on for this plan, the hazard mitigation plan, but that's something you would definitely want to decide for the emergency operations plan that number 5 refers to. Next slide. We're also evaluating the vulnerability of the city. According to the 2016 American Community Survey, the city of Kenai has a population of 7,551, and there's over 3,200 homes, and Elizabeth is working on identifying critical facilities and infrastructure that absolutely need to be protected so that in case of an emergency, their functional value will be well established and continue. So that's a quick summary of the process that we've been working on and we're in the middle of right now.
All right, anyone have any questions? I have just one, and this may not even be something that is a concern, but as FEMA, or when they redefine floodplains, when they change their maps and stuff, does that need to be updated in the hazard mitigation, or is it two separate issues completely?
You would update it in the
Okay.
hazard mitigation plan. With communities that participate in the NFIP program, they would actually include the maps in their plans. And actually, that's another mitigation action that we want to add. You jogged my memory that it would be helpful to evaluate what it would take for the city to become involved in the NFIP, where the borough actively participates and they would implement the program.
Okay.
I could add
Yeah.
Just so the city does not participate in the National Flood Insurance Program or the NFIP. The borough does, and so I suggested we add as Jennifer recapped, just it would just be explore if the city what is interested in joining, but the actual plan itself wouldn't. It wouldn't make that decision. It would evaluate hazards and provide goals and mitigation measures, but it wouldn't make a decision on the NFIP program for the city.
Not this version of the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
This version would just evaluate feasibility of participating, and then the 5-year update would involve whatever choice was made. If the city was a participant, then you would include a floodplain map and identify the number of properties that are affected and identify ways to mitigate future potential disasters for those properties that are already where they shouldn't be. And then to implement building code or whatever zoning restrictions you could implement so that nobody built in a hazard-prone area in the future.
Okay, great, thanks.
Because that's the purpose of these plans, is to do what you can up front to prevent the damage of a potential event.
All right, anybody else have any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we will move along. Item D, unscheduled public comment. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E. We have consideration of plats. First one is E1, Resolution PZ 2019-40. The original preliminary plat of Valhalla Heights Osmond replat submitted by Edge Surveying and Design on behalf of Jeremiah and Jennifer Cates, 415 Phillips Drive, Kenai, Alaska. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait. All good. And I wanted to, the staff report for this one starts on page 9 of the packet, and the plat is on page 15. So it shows a lot line being removed between two parcels in the Valhalla Heights subdivision. There's a couple of maps on pages 16 and 17 of the packet. So one shows a zoomed in version that shows that these are currently 2 vacant lots. And then the zoomed out version shows that they're at the end of Phillips Drive within the rural residential zone of the city. And so removing the lot line would create a larger residential lot along Phillips Drive. And in my staff report, I note that access would be via Phillips Drive. It's a gravel road maintained by the city of Kenai. No additional rights of way are designated, and street names are denoted accurately on the plat. There is not water or sewer lines within the Valhalla Heights subdivision, so the applicant would need to install a private well and wastewater treatment and disposal system that followed state requirements. I misspoke on an existing 10-foot easement runs along the east boundary of the proposed lot 15A, and the plat would dedicate an additional 10-foot utility easement along the south and west boundaries of the proposed lot. I noted that the plat meets the city code for subdivision design standards. The plat shows the city's setbacks, which I did not think should be included on the plat because it's a city zoning code requirement. So just in the future, if the city would ever want to change their setbacks, or if the zoning changed for this parcel, those setbacks would not remain the same. And I thought that should be taken off of the plat because there's already a note that references that this plat must follow the zoning code for the city of Kenai. I thought it was different than the 10-foot utility easement, which would stay the same in the future. So I made the recommendation to approve this plat, but adding the condition to remove the note that covers the building setbacks, and then also to remove their depiction on the preliminary plat. And then the third condition was just that further development conforms to all federal, state, and local regulations, and that again would cover the water and sewer requirement. This parcel is far enough from existing water and sewer lines; it's not required to connect, and so that then this would ensure that state guidelines are followed for the installation of the water and septic sewer system on site. That is the end of my staff report.
All right, thank you. Can we get a motion, please? Commissioner Askin.
I move we approve resolution PZ 2019-40 as presented and with staff recommendations.
All right, do we have a second?
Second?
Second. Should we open this up for public testimony? Yeah. All right, so we're going to open it up for public testimony. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to PZ 2019-40? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please call the roll.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Commissioner Halsted,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
and Chairman Twait.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to item E2, Resolution PZ 2019-41, a original preliminary plat of Valhalla Heights 2019 replatted submitted by McLean Consulting, Inc. on behalf of Jeremiah and Jennifer Cates, 415 Phillips Drive, Kenai. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait. The staff report for this resolution starts on page 18. The plat is on page 25, and then there's 2 maps that follow the plat on pages 26 and 27. So this lot is another one that is within the Valhalla Heights subdivision. It's also on Phillips Drive. It's on the same side of the street as the one we just reviewed, but it's in the middle of the road. On this one, there is an existing home on lot 11, and this would remove the property line between lots 10 and 11. I noted some of the same things in reviewing this plat. So there's no additional rights of way dedicated. The access would remain via Phillips Drive, which is a gravel road maintained by the city of Kenai. There's no water and sewer lines within this subdivision. However, for this one, the applicant has already installed a private well and wastewater treatment and disposal system. So the recommendation for this one, I recommend it reads that they continue to follow local and state and federal guidelines. There is a utility easement that runs along the east boundary of the proposed lot 10A. The plat meets subdivision design standards under city code. And I recommend approval with the stipulation that further development conforms to federal, state of Alaska, and local regulations. End of staff report.
All right, can I get a motion, please? Commissioner Askin.
I move that we approve resolution number 2019-41 as presented and with staff recommendation.
All right, do we have a second?
Second?
Second, all right, and we'll open it up for public testimony. Anyone wishing to speak to PZ 2019-41? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Any discussion? Commissioner McIntyre.
Just a question. To have two of them right in the same subdivision at the same time, is there something going on that people are just wanting to
Yeah.
make bigger lots?
Please.
Through the chair. We actually, all three of the plats on the agenda are in the Valhalla Heights subdivision. The other one is across the Kenai Spur Highway. I am not aware of any larger development interest going on. The plats for this one, the one we just looked at was prepared by Edge Survey, and then this one was prepared by McLean, and the one that's across the street was also done by McLean. So they weren't all done by the same surveyor. I did think about one thing I thought that I did touch upon in this staff report, because the removal of this lot line would make a pretty sizable lot. The one at the end, it would also be big, but it's a little more out of way where this one was in the middle of the street. So I did note that I don't think there's a reason not to approve this. It's still, the rural residential zone is meant for larger lot sizes within the city. And so I didn't think it would be totally out of character in this neighborhood, but I just sort of made a note that for neighborhoods where all of the lots are of smaller sizes, it may be beneficial to consider in the grand scheme of the city that we might not want a giant lot that is supposed to be, say, within the suburban residential zone where the development is supposed to be denser, or in areas where there's water and sewer lines. It's more economic or more cost effective to locate more residences in the city along the same sewer line, whereas this one, it's in a neighborhood that doesn't have water and sewer lines and is not likely to get water and sewer lines anytime in the near future. So I felt the larger lot sizes would still work in this neighborhood.
Commissioner Halsted.
If I'm looking at page 27, this is for Ms. Appleby, sorry. It looks like lots 13 and 14 were previously merged. So you'll have lot 10, 11 merged. 12 is going to be a smaller lot. 13 and 14 are merged. 15 and 16 will then be merged. So if we're looking at smaller lots, we've just doubled all those sizes. I mean, I guess it's more of an observation than a concern, but cool.
Yeah, I guess
Please.
my 2 cents would, I'll just say that I think that observation illustrates that this neighborhood, I guess the trend is for larger lot sizes, probably because there's no water, sewer, and there's a lot of treed lots here, so it's kind of a nice area if you want a large lot with trees.
All All right. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, I used to have a piece of land here. And these lots are really skinny, so I understand why people are putting them together.
Very good. Anything else? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Chairman Tweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Halsted,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to item E3, Resolution PZ 2019-42. It's an original preliminary plat of Valhalla Heights White replat submitted by McLean's Consulting on behalf of John and Mary White, 5327 Kenai Spur Highway. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait. And the staff report for this one starts on page 28 of the packet. And the plat is on page 35, and then again, there's two maps that follow. So this one is still the Valhalla Heights subdivision, but it's across the Kenai Spur Highway. And it also has different zoning. This one, let's see. I don't know if we forgot to change it up there. And actually, in my staff report, I know it's rural residential, but I believe the map, I thought it was.
Limited commercial.
Yeah, I think this is limited commercial, so. Sorry, we tried to proof the packets through multiple lookings, but I think, apologies for that one, that it's, this one is not actually rural residential, it's limited commercial, which, it's along the Kenai Spur Highway, so it's a little bit different than the one that was farther back. But what is currently on this lot, though, is there's a home and then there's a shop. So there's 3 lots, and the residents in the shop are on different lots. And there's also an accessory residential structure, so a shed that's on a different lot. So removing these lot lines would put everything on one parcel, and there would be no ownership change. So this lot is accessed from the Kenai Spur Highway, which is a paved road that's maintained by the state of Alaska. Still in this location, the city does not have water or sewer lines. The applicant has already installed a private well and wastewater treatment and disposal system. And so I made a recommended condition that additional development would follow state, local, and federal guidelines, and so that would ensure state guidelines are followed if for future use of the well and septic system, and if anything else would be installed on the property in the future. There's no utility easements that would be dedicated by the plat. An overhead utility is located within the right-of-way of the Kenai Spur Highway, connect to this lot. The plat meets the city code for subdivision design standards, and I recommend approval of the Valhalla Heights White replat, subject to the condition that further development conforms to federal, state, and local regulations, and also just to add block 9 to the legal description on the proposed plat, since it's in the box on the plat, it just says it's a replat of the subdivision, and that gives the lots, but it doesn't list block 9, and so that would just add additional clarity. End of staff report.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion, please? Commissioner Halsted.
I move we approve Resolution PZ 2019-42, preliminary subdivision plat, Valhalla Heights White replat.
All right, we have a second.
I second.
Second. All right, we'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to PZ 2019-42? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back. Any discussion? Commissioner Greenberg.
Have these always have been owned by the same folks, these lots? Like, what I'm looking at is the driveway, and is there possibly an access easement through there to that other building?
Yes.
I know that the state requires a driveway permit to gain access from the Kenai Spur Highway. I guess I don't know I don't know who owned this lot prior to John and Mary White, or if they've owned this for a long time. I guess is your question if an additional driveway connecting to the Kenai Spur Highway could be created, or?
Just that lot 4 has his access, if that was ever a different person, comes across the other lot. So were they ever granted an easement that needs to go away?
Not that I'm aware of. I guess I see what you're saying. You're saying if there was a driveway permit that crossed,
Yeah, like there's a driveway permit on lot 3, but lot 4 doesn't seem to have one, or doesn't go to the highway. And there's a structure there, so at any point did they have an agreement with lot 3 that there would be an
I see.
access easement that we just don't know about that maybe needs to go away? I don't know, or does it matter?
I'm not aware of an agreement that would have been in different ownership.
Either way, I think once it's dissolved, it probably goes away if there is one, I would think, right? I mean, like a shared driveway agreement, I would assume if there is no need for it, there could be a recorded one, though, I suppose, that would be.
Yeah, because there'd still be permission to connect to the state, because that's a state maintained road.
You wouldn't need one anymore, but does
Yeah.
one exist, and does it kind of get orphaned out there or something? Because it looks like it might, I don't know. And maybe it doesn't matter.
Problem for a title company down the line, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my best answer is I'm not aware of one, but the driveway access to the Kenai Spur would stay in place, but I don't know if there ever was one with different owners.
The only time I think it would ever become an issue is if they ever decide to put those lot lines back in there. Getting a driveway permit from the state sometimes is a little difficult. They may want to revert back to a shared driveway agreement if they had one, but I don't think.
But even if you built on it, if there's an access, if there is an access easement there and you try to build on it, that might be a problem.
Not our problem, I guess. Huh? Yeah.
I guess I have my other 2 cents is I guess because it's a house and then it's a shop and a shed, so I mean someone could have perhaps owned a vacant lot, and these people acquired vacant lots. This is just my. I can't. I guess I don't foresee a scenario where someone, like where there was a different owner of the parcel that had the shop, because it's all kind of connected to the same building, and it looks like the house actually probably may not meet our setback requirements from a lot line, and removing the lot line would fix that. But that's what I would guess the development. But I guess I don't have evidence that's what happened. But it's what it looks like, I suppose, on the imagery.
All right. Commissioner McIntyre.
I guess I like the proposal because it looks to me like you've got a house that's already crossed 2 boundary lines on 2 lots, if I'm reading that picture correctly. And this would fix that problem. One of the questions I did have is the shed and I assume it's the shed and the shop or whatever that is there, they're awfully close on that one side, and since McLean probably did the survey on this, is that right?
Correct.
I assume they probably checked the setback. It's hard to tell from these maps if that fits, but
We'll have an answer in a second, maybe. Go ahead. Yeah.
The shop looks big enough to me that the owners would have had to get a building permit, which would have checked the setbacks. The setbacks aren't explicitly denoted on the plat, again, with, my view that I don't think they should be drawn in case code changes, but the plat does say in note number 2 that development must meet the City of Kenai Chapter 14 zoning code requirements. So I would cover the setback. I'm not aware that the sheds encroach. It's difficult to tell just looking at the imagery, but I'm not aware that they do encroach into the setback currently. And when they were constructed, there would have had to have been a zoning check, and if let's just say they do go in the setback, we would consider them a non-conforming structure, and the owners could not, they could not increase the nonconformity, so if they were adding on or totally remodeling it, they would have to move the shed back, and it would be fixed then. If they were just repairing it to maintain it, then they would be allowed to do that as a non-conforming structure. That's my best answer for the setback question.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Chairman Tweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Askin,
Yes.
Commissioner Halsted,
Yes?
Commissioner Greenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, we will move on quickly now. We have no items under F, public hearing, G, unfinished business, H, new business, I, pending items. Takes us to item J, reports. J, A, city council, Councilman Malloy.
And thank you, Chair Twait. First, I want to just report briefly on the Board of Adjustment matter. Councilmember Peterkin and I did not participate in that because we had a conflict of interest with the Kenai Christian Church. So there was a 5-member panel. The hearing was on October 7. They continued their, after hearing, adjudicative deliberative session to October 9. When they came out of that, they made a decision. The decision will be distributed on or before November 8th, the written decision. Their motion was to reverse the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission approving the conditional use permit for ACG LLC to operate a retail marijuana establishment because the main public entrance to the church now faces McKinley Street and does not meet the 500-foot required separation distance between the proposed retail establishment and the main public entrance to the church. They'll have a written decision explaining their reasoning that's supposed to come out on or before November 8th, and the parties have been notified, and there's a right of appeal to the Superior Court, and the time period for that appeal hasn't begun to run yet. We've had 2 meetings since you last met. We had a meeting on October 2nd, and that we took up ordinance number 3083-2019 substitute, and that was the one amending the Kenai Municipal Code on adult businesses to increase the buffer distance between adult businesses and sensitive uses from 500 feet to 1,000 feet, define as sensitive uses, and add adult businesses to the table, the land use table. There was a minor amendment made, and that ordinance passed 5-2. And then there was, we also acted on ordinance number 3088-2019, amending the Kenai Municipal Code on standards for commercial marijuana establishments to incorporate limitations on hours of operation. There was a proposed amendment to make the hours of operation 2 to 8 a.m. To the ordinance was proposing to make the hours of operation 2 to 8 a.m. And there was a proposed amendment to make it 5 to 8 a.m. in July. That failed 4 to 3, and the final result was an amendment to adopt really the state hours of operation, so that our code would provide that the hours of operation are 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that Kenai Police can enforce hours of operation. There was public testimony for and against the ordinance. We also acted on the ordinance number 30722019 substitute, and this was the ordinance that had to do with city-owned lands. Another matter that had been before you for your comment, and that passed unanimously. And we also did a resolution to amend our fee schedule because of differences in fees when we changed the fee schedule for that. We also got a grant from Rasmussen Foundation and some private donations for the purchase of new flooring for the dining room and administrative offices of the Kenai Senior Center. And then the other item of perhaps interest to you was that we supported the draft environmental impact statement for the Alaska LNG project and approved comments to be submitted on behalf of the city to the Federal Environmental Regulatory Commission. We also had a meeting on October 16. Councilmember Glendenning and Petty took the oath of office again. The election was certified, so they were sworn in again. Vice Mayor Gabriel was absent, so he was sworn in separately at a later date by the clerk for his new term. We also took up an ordinance. This is 30892019, had to do with a publication in the newspaper primarily of the council's agenda and packet. It didn't change the other type of publication and distribution that we do, like in the library and outside here and in the website. The proposal was to not publish any more of the entire agenda, but keep what is on for public hearings, what would be coming up on, the basically new ordinances for introduction, and, scheduled public comment and action approval items. And that didn't pass. What did pass was an amendment that we would publish in the newspaper only the public hearings. So that's what we'd be doing going forward. We also approved a standard lease form for city lands outside the airport reserve, following the new ordinance and code on city-owned lands. And then that project is going to be continuing going on, and you'll have more involvement in that because planning and administration has been working on the database of all the city-owned parcels, and for recommendations on them in terms of what should be available for sale, what should be is for a public purpose now, maybe needed to be retained for a public purpose in the future, in items like that. So there'll be like a written land management policy that will be coming to you at some point in the future. And then at our next meeting, which is November 6th, one of the items is going to be reassignment of council liaisons, and so I don't know if I'll continue to be your council liaison or not, because it's really up to Mayor Gabriel. I've certainly enjoyed working with you this year. I've had the privilege of serving on the city council for quite a number of years, so I've served on really every commission and committee. So what he does is he asks people you know, what they would like to serve on. And so I just said, well, you know, whatever you want me to do, which I said last year, so I ended up with you. So I don't know what it'll be this year, but, you know, we have a newer member, you know, Robert Peterkin, so, you know, I would give him priority for whatever you wanted. You know, so, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Halsted.
Question, do you have any update on the Kenai Airport as far as progress goes and moving forward?
Yes, it's still on, schedule. There was a lot of concern over, particularly the women's bathroom, that that administration was addressing, because, they're doing a handicap, you know, and so the result is going to be, I guess, one less stall. And so there were some issues regarding that. There was a lot more, you know, asbestos issues that they had to deal with, which caused a lot of delay. And so we used up pretty much all the contingency that we had for the project. But it's supposedly going to be still on schedule.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. And if you're not back here, we did another question?
Well,
Commissioner McIntyre.
as long as you're asking about updates, would you happen to have any information on the Kenai Spur Highway? I know that it looks like they've got all the lanes done, and but they're not painted. And even of greater concern is what's the status on the bike path that runs next to it? Because you know, it looks like they've got it all ready to go and ready to put asphalt back down, but there's no equipment anymore. They've moved all their equipment out.
Yeah, that project is going to be completed next season. So they're going to be back. So they'll be doing the bike path and finishing the paving. So it'll be like a permanent finish. It's kind of like not really there right now. So they are going to. You know, my understanding was they were wrapping up this month what they could get done this year, and then they were going to be back and finish everything next season.
Will that apply for Beaver Loop as well?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
All right, anything else?
And just, you know, Beaver Loop is of particular interest because once they're done with that, the city is taking ownership of that road. And that's an area where they haven't, you know, finished the shoulders or anything for that project either. So that's going to be finished next season too.
Isn't there a bike path going in there as well? It's going to go across
Yes.
the Beaver Loop? Yeah.
Anything else? All right, we will move along. Item J2 we will skip since Vice Chair Fikes is not here to report on that. We'll go to J3, Administration. Ms. Appleby.
Thank you, Chair Twait. And I guess I had very timely, I'd looked at the state website for road construction just briefly, just before this meeting actually, because I was curious about the Sterling Highway actually, and so then I started clicking on all the projects in Kenai. So I can tell you that the DOT did actually provide some recent updates, like the Beaver Loop website actually was updated, because before when I would look, it had a lot of older information. So I can just confirm what Council Liaison Molloy stated, is that the DOT website said that for both Beaver Loop and the Kenai Spur Highway that work would continue next summer. And there will still be bike paths along both of those roads. And I don't have an update on the bridge access bike path. I'll probably need to ask DOT if they have anything for me to plan that, because I'm still, the city was awarded some money to build a bike path on part of bridge access, but I don't have an update on the timing of that at this point. But anyway, that's the rest of what I know. Oh, and the state will be plowing Beaver Loop Road still this winter, and then once the construction is complete, the city would take over the maintenance.
So, what, did you happen to notice what the status is on the other end of the spur?
No, I mostly read closely the Beaver Loop and the Sterling Highway because I was actually just curious about the Cooper Landing area because it's a big reroute even though it's outside of the city. But those are the 2 pages I read more closely, so I don't know about in detail on the spur. But you can check out online because it seemed like they had redone their website a little bit. So that's my brief state road update. Just because I had looked at it about an hour ago. Well, maybe 2 hours ago.
That's more recent than me.
So I just wanted to talk briefly on the hazard mitigation plan. So this is about the size of the plan. So this is the pre-draft plan. So this will come. The draft plan will come before the commission for a resolution, and or you can comment individually as well on it. But there's a few more changes after meeting. It was some internal city staff, department heads. I met with Jennifer today, as she mentioned, police, fire, airport, Parks and Rec. So we have a few more changes before this will be out. But the idea is to get it submitted to the state. If not by the end of this year, then early 2020, and then the state and also the federal government would have to review it before it's totally final, and then it would the Kenai Peninsula Borough would then adopt it as part of their hazard mitigation plan to cover the city of Kenai. And then our next meeting is November 13th. I don't recall if we have officially canceled the November 27th meeting, but that is, it's the day before Thanksgiving, so I was going to cancel it because I thought people would rather not be in council chambers on that day. But yeah, if anyone opposes that, I'll make sure there's a cancellation note on the website for the November 27th one, but the November 13th and December 11th meetings are still as scheduled. What else do I have? And then the land management plan, I don't recall if I had mentioned before to the commission that our temporary lines technician had completed her work in the database, and so now we're going through our internal review of the parcels. And there's a lot of them. There's about 380 or so parcels, give or take, depending on how you count. So there's quite a few, but I think it'll end up being a useful tool for the city when it's all done. I think those are the main things I wanted to give an update on. So it's under my, and just in the packet, there's Q3 reports. I knew there was one other thing. There's just a quick summary of some code enforcement, building permits, and a summary of the resolutions that this commission has passed in the third quarter. That's the end of my administrative staff report.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item K, additional public comment. Seeing no public, I believe we can have no comment. We touched on the informational items under L, so we move on to item M, November 13th, next meeting. Anyone besides myself not going to be there? And I might be if I really feel motivated. I have to fly out that evening, so we'll see. Everyone else going to be here? Good. Commissioners' comments and questions. Commissioner Askin.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner McIntyre.
I don't have anything either.
Commissioner Halstead.
I just want to thank Mr. Malloy for being our representative, and it's been a pleasure having him here all the way up to the point where he said we were his last pick for the council to be a part of.
Thank you.
And of course, even if he isn't appointed the liaison, he can always just come and watch from you know, why would you not want to? Commissioner Greenberg?
I don't have anything, thank you.
All right, I think I'm good too, so with the meeting or business complete, the meeting is adjourned. Got some old candy there.